You know, we're always told that to be successful today, you have to be everywhere, right? Post constantly, never let people forget you. But what if that's completely backwards? What if the most powerful thing an artist could do is just disappear? That's what we're digging into today. This isn't just about one artist. It's about a whole strategy, a masterclass in making absence your biggest asset. This is how Frank Ocean basically broke the content game by refusing to play. We're going to break down the Frank Ocean formula.
In 2012, Frank Ocean, then a rising star, posted a single, cryptic blog entry detailing his first love, who was a man. This courageous act of self-disclosure immediately risked his career in the often hypermasculine and rigid landscape of hip-hop. I mean, we really can't overstate how huge this was. This guy is on the brink of becoming a global superstar, and he decides to share his deepest truth, knowing it could totally blow up his career. But here's the thing, this was way more than just a confession. It was a power move, a declaration of independence. It was the exact moment he grabbed the steering wheel of his own story, basically telling the world, my art will be defined by my truth, period. And that one vulnerable act, it became the seed for this whole radical philosophy about art and control.
All right, so let's start right there. That moment is so key. We're calling this first part a radical confession because, look, if you want to get the Frank Ocean formula, you have to get where it came from. This wasn't just him getting personal. No way. It was the first calculated move in a long game. A very conscious choice to use his own truth as both a shield and, honestly, a weapon.
So what this did was, it completely changed the game. By putting his truth out there on his own terms, Frank basically drew a line in the sand. He took away the power from anyone who might have tried to use his story against him, you know? But even bigger than that, he completely reset his relationship with his fans and the music industry. The message couldn't have been clearer. My work and my life are one and the same, and I'm the only one in charge of the story. So this radical authenticity wasn't just a nice idea, it became the solid ground he built everything on. It was the very foundation of his creative control.
But you know, a mindset like this, so defiant, so focused on total control, it doesn't just pop up overnight. It's earned, and usually it's forged in fire. So that brings us to our next chapter, Forged by Chaos. We're going to look at the tough times that shaped his entire worldview, the stuff that made him realize that having total control wasn't just a nice to have, it was a matter of survival.
So to really get the formula, you have to get what he went through. First up, Hurricane Katrina. For him, this wasn't some headline on the news. It meant being forced out of his home in New Orleans and having to start over in LA. Imagine your entire life, your sense of stability just ripped away. When you go through something like that, you learn pretty fast how important it is to build something that's truly yours, something no one can take away. Then, on top of that, you've got his early days as a songwriter-for-hire. He was just another gear in the big music machine, writing hits for other people. He saw up close how the industry treats creativity like it's just another product to be packaged and sold off. So you take those two experiences, and you get the key lesson he walked away with. If you want your art to be pure, to really mean something, you have to control everything.
And that lesson, born from all that chaos, it leads us right to the heart of this whole thing. This is the core idea, the scarcity philosophy. I mean, the subtitle says it all, right? Disappear to become a myth. This is where we're going to lay out the brilliant, totally counterintuitive strategy that defines his whole career, and honestly changed the game for so many artists who came after him.
All right, so here it is, the Frank Ocean formula. Let's really get into it. First off, it's a systematic belief. That part's huge. It means his disappearing acts aren't random, it's a plan, not a mood. The core idea that the most valuable art is scarce art. Think about it, we're drowning in content 24/7. So what's the most precious thing? Something you can't just get anytime you want. And that's the big mind shift here. He treats his own fame, his visibility, like it's a limited resource. It's not something to just throw around. It's something to protect, to save, and to use very, very carefully. Almost like a secret weapon.
So the whole formula rests on three main pillars. Pillar number one is what we're calling the Strategic Scarcity Mandate. This is the part you see, or rather, the part you don't see. It's all about intentionally dodging the whole circus of interviews, press junkets, and the endless social media noise the industry expects. But he doesn't just go silent. He actually turns that silence into a tool. His absence creates this vacuum. And what happens with a vacuum? People rush in to fill it, with theories, with hype, with excitement. That empty space ends up creating more buzz than a million tweets ever could. The silence itself becomes the art.
Okay, moving on to pillar 2, Time-Dilation Artistry. This is all about how he plays with time. The music business runs on a hamster wheel, right? Always churning out new stuff to stay in the spotlight. Frank just gets off the wheel completely.
He takes these long, totally unpredictable breaks between albums. And it's not him being lazy, it's part of the process. It gives the music time to breathe and get right. It lets the culture kind of catch up to where he's going. And what that does is it makes his releases feel like a huge event, you know? Not just another song dropping on a Friday. The wait is part of the experience. And that brings us to the third and final pillar, the one that really holds this whole thing up, the Unflinching Authenticity Protocol. And boom, we're right back where we started with that 2012 blog post. Think about it. The disappearing acts, the long waits, all of that would just be a cheap trick if the music itself wasn't real. This pillar is the rule that says everything he makes has to come from a place of raw, honest, emotional truth. That's why his stuff hits so hard and why people are willing to wait for it. The mystery makes you curious for sure, but it's the realness, the authenticity that makes you a believer.
Okay, so we get the big idea, the philosophy. But a philosophy without a plan is just a dream, right? So now we get to the how. This section is called Systems of Silence. We're going to look at the actual nuts and bolts methods he uses to make the Frank Ocean formula a reality.
And this chart right here just lays it all out perfectly. On one side, you've got the traditional music industry playbook. Constant touring, always putting out new music, flooding the media, all of it controlled by the record label. It's a machine built for one thing, being seen. But then look at Frank's side. Instead of nonstop promotion, he has this project isolation protocol. He works alone, protecting his ideas. Instead of frequent releases, he's got those unpredictable timelines. Instead of being all over the media, he uses mystery, maybe a calculated leak, to build hype his way. And the biggest one, instead of the label running the show, he controls his own story, top to bottom. He's not just in the system, he is the system.
And if you want to see the system in action, look no further than the legendary wait between Channel Orange and Blonde. So, 2012, Channel Orange comes out, it's a huge deal, he's the new big thing. And then, nothing. Radio silence. For 3 straight years. The fans went wild, trying to piece together clues, building this myth around him. The hype was insane. And then comes the genius move. On August 19, 2016, he drops a visual album called Endless. Cool project, but its real purpose? It fulfilled his contract with his record label. And then, just 1 day later, bam, he releases Blonde, his masterpiece, all on his own. He basically beat the system at its own game and walked away a free agent. It was one of the slickest power moves I've ever seen in music. But here's the thing. Disappearing doesn't mean becoming irrelevant. It's more like a controlled burn. And another part of his system is what you could call creative cross-pollination. So while he's gone, he's not gone. First, he started Boys Don't Cry, this really cool limited-run magazine. It was a way for him to explore all these other ideas outside of music in a format he had total control over. Second, he'd do these super selective collaborations. You know, a surprise verse on a huge track here, a production credit there. Just little reminders that he's still around, still a genius. And third, all this works together to grow his brand, his influence. He's not just a musician anymore. His world keeps getting bigger, even when he's quiet. So when you put this all together, the philosophy, the systems, what's the result? Well, that leads us to our next section, becoming the auteur. We're going to look at the massive impact he's had, both on his own career and on the industry as a whole. He basically wrote a new playbook for any artist feeling crushed by the system.
I mean, this is the whole story right here, the transformation. Just think back to where this all began. A young songwriter who lost his home, felt like just another nameless part of the music machine, and by patiently, systematically following his own formula, he became this globally respected auteur, an artist who calls all the shots, whose vision is 100% his own. He got to a place where him being quiet creates more noise than most artists make by shouting. It's a classic hero's journey, really, from chaos to total control.
And if you had to boil his entire legacy down to one sentence, it would be this. He proved that the greatest power in the content economy is the refusal to play the content game.
And you really can't deny his impact on the music world. He literally created a new blueprint. Before Frank, if an artist disappeared for 4 years, you'd assume their career was over. He made that strategic withdrawal a legitimate, even brilliant business move. He basically gave a whole generation of artists permission to say no, to protect their own sanity and their art from the endless demand for more. He didn't just change the rules of the game, he invented a whole new one. All right, so after all that, what's the takeaway for the rest of us? That brings us to our final section, the power of absence. This is where we distill the lessons of the Frank Ocean formula down to something all of us can use, especially if you're trying to create anything meaningful in this crazy, noisy world.
So here are the big lessons. First, your greatest power is the space you protect, the quiet, the time you take to just think. That's where the good stuff happens. Second,
Start treating your visibility like a resource you have to conserve. Don't just chase likes and attention. Use it strategically when it really counts. Third, stop rushing. Seriously, let your work cook. Let it be great. If it's good enough, people will wait. And finally, and this one is huge, focus on being essential, not just being available. The world is drowning in content. What it really needs is more stuff that actually matters.
When you look at it all, Frank Ocean built his entire legacy on one single truth. The most valuable things are the things you can't have easily. It's in his music, his career, everything. He reminds us that true respect isn't built on being available 24/7, it's built on mystery, on undeniable quality, and on having the guts to protect your art. The Frank Ocean formula is the blueprint for how to disappear to become a myth, using radical honesty and strategic control as your tools.
And at the end of the day, his entire journey teaches us one profound lesson. Absence is the key to enduring reverence.